30,000 years ago, the world was colder, harsher, and far less forgiving than it is today. Vast ice sheets dominated the northern lands. Deserts expanded and contracted with shifting climates, and the oceans themselves were lower, revealing coastlines that no longer exist. Humanity was not settled, not secure, and not dominant. Early humans lived on the edge of survival, moving constantly, adapting relentlessly, and facing a challenge no species before them had truly mastered: the open sea. This was a time when migration was not a choice driven by curiosity or ambition, but a necessity forced by hunger, climate, and competition. Herds moved, plants vanished, rivers dried or froze, and human groups followed the only rule that mattered: move or perish. Along the edges of continents, early humans stared out at vast waters that separated familiar land from unknown promise. Across those waters lay new hunting grounds, untouched resources, and safety from rivals. But between them and survival stretched the most dangerous environment on Earth. The sea was not a pathway. It was a barrier. Early humans had no maps, no compasses, no written knowledge. They did not understand tides, currents, or storms in scientific terms. What they possessed instead was observation, memory, and courage sharpened by desperation. They watched the behavior of birds that vanished beyond the horizon and returned days later. They noticed floating logs, drifting seaweed, and the rhythm of waves against the shore. Slowly, across generations, the idea formed that water could be crossed, not conquered, but endured. Migration by sea began not as grand voyages, but as cautious experiments: short crossings between visible lands, narrow straits where the opposite shore could still be seen. Early watercraft were simple, fragile constructions: logs bound together, reed bundles tied with plant fibers, skins stretched over wooden frames. These vessels were not designed for comfort or speed; they were designed for survival, and survival alone. Every journey carried risk beyond calculation. A sudden storm could tear apart a raft in moments. Cold water could kill within minutes. Strong currents could drag travelers into open ocean with no return. Yet humans went anyway, not because they were fearless, but because staying behind often meant certain death. The sea became a test of human adaptability, demanding cooperation, planning, and trust at levels never required before. Those who crossed did not travel alone. Families moved together. Elders carried knowledge. Hunters carried tools. Mothers carried children. Every person on a vessel represented a shared investment in the future of the group. A single mistake could doom everyone. For the first time in human history, survival depended not just on individual strength, but on collective discipline and shared purpose. Life at sea was unlike anything early humans had experienced. The land offered landmarks, shelter, and predictable resources. The ocean offered none. There was no place to hide, no stable ground, no certainty of return. The horizon was endless, and the sky above offered both guidance and threat. The sun and stars became tools for navigation, even if their patterns were only vaguely understood. Humans learned to read wind direction, cloud formations, and wave behavior, transforming instinct into survival strategy. Food was another challenge entirely. At sea, hunting large land animals was impossible. Humans relied on dried meat, gathered plants, and whatever the ocean provided. Fish trapped near the surface, shellfish collected along temporary stops, seabirds caught when luck allowed. Hunger was constant, and thirst even more dangerous. Fresh water was precious, rationed carefully, and protected at all costs. Despite these dangers, the sea offered opportunities unknown on land. Coastal environments were rich with marine life: shellfish beds, fish schools, and seabirds provided new food sources that could sustain populations even when land resources failed. Over time, humans who survived these crossings became increasingly skilled coastal foragers. The ocean transformed from enemy to partner, though never a safe one. Migration reshaped human culture as profoundly as it reshaped geography. Groups that crossed water became isolated from their origins, forced to adapt independently. Languages diverged, tools evolved differently. Beliefs and rituals emerged around the sea, reflecting both gratitude and fear. The ocean became a living force in human imagination, a giver of life and a taker of lives, deserving respect rather than dominance. Storms were the ultimate test. Without warning, skies could darken, winds could rise, and waves could turn lethal. In those moments, strength meant nothing. Only preparation, cooperation, and resilience mattered. Humans learned to secure vessels, adjust course, and endure. Many did not survive. Their losses became lessons etched into memory, shaping how future generations approached the sea. When land finally appeared on the horizon, it was not celebrated with triumph, but with exhaustion and relief. Reaching new shores did not end the struggle. Unknown lands held unfamiliar predators, strange climates, and untested resources, but they also offered space, freedom from overcrowding, competition, and dwindling food. Migration at sea allowed humanity to spread across islands and continents, reaching places that would otherwise remain inaccessible for tens of thousands of years. By 30,000 years ago, humans had already reached regions once thought impossible: island chains, remote coastlines, and distant lands separated by wide waters. These migrations laid the foundation for the global human presence that exists today. Every coastal civilization, every seafaring culture traces its origins back to these early crossings made with fragile tools and immense courage. Survival at sea changed how humans thought. It encouraged long-term planning, foresight, and storytelling. Knowledge had to be remembered and passed down accurately. Mistakes could not be repeated. Children grew up hearing stories not just of hunts and predators, but of waves, storms, and journeys beyond sight. Memory became as valuable as strength. The sea also taught humility. On land, humans could dominate smaller animals and manipulate their environment. At sea, they were insignificant. This balance shaped a worldview where humans were part of nature, not masters of it. Success depended on understanding natural rhythms rather than forcing control. Over generations, these migrations strengthened social bonds. Trust became essential. Leadership emerged not from brute force alone, but from wisdom and experience. Those who could read signs, anticipate danger, and guide others became vital to survival. The sea demanded leaders who listened as much as they commanded. Life 30,000 years ago was not heroic in the way modern stories imagine. It was uncertain, exhausting, and fragile. But it was also extraordinary. Early humans crossed oceans without knowing what waited beyond the horizon. They risked everything not for conquest, but for continuation. Each successful journey expanded the human story, pushing its boundaries further into the unknown. The legacy of those migrations still lives within us. Our ability to explore, adapt, and survive in hostile environments was forged not in comfort, but in desperation. The courage to face the sea with nothing but belief and cooperation shaped the destiny of our species. The ocean did not welcome early humans, it tested them. And through that test, humanity proved something fundamental. Survival is not granted by strength alone, but by the willingness to move forward even when the path disappears into the horizon. That was life 30,000 years ago. Not a tale of mastery, but of endurance. Not the story of conquering the sea, but of surviving it and becoming human because of it.